out about the Francis Gordon Brown Prize. You guys should look that up. The description of that award is like very, very old school Yale. It is like in honor of manhood or something. My mom still laughs about that one. Oh, that is funny. Well, good afternoon. So good to be here. Last time I spoke in front of a group of people at Yale was 10 years ago when I was defending my senior research thesis as a biology major. If you were to ask me today what that talk or research entailed, I'd have no idea. So don't ask me about biology. And honestly, if you asked me 10 years ago when I was giving that talk, I probably also had no idea what I was talking about. But in all seriousness, I'm extremely honored and grateful to be here today. As a field hockey coach at Northwestern, I have not been able to get back to a lot of alumni events. This is actually my first time seeing this new facility, and it is blowing me away. It's so freaking cool that you guys get to live and work out of here every day. I should talk to Carrie and Gonzo about getting a Yale versus Northwestern game on the docket so I can bring my team back here and check this out. I mean, it could be like a yearly thing, I think. So yeah, a little over a month ago, I was down in Santiago, Chile, recruiting at the Junior World Cup when I got a text from Lorraine Lewis asking if I would like to speak at the Fed. And I could not have been more excited when I saw that I did not have a recruiting event this weekend to go to and could make my way up to Yale. This place holds a really special place in my heart. I love Yale through and through, and it was really such an instrumental place for me in terms of growing up and learning how to learn, really starting to think about navigating my career and what I wanted to do with my life. I was actually lucky to be an attendee at the very first ever Fed. It was my junior year at Yale, down in New York City, and in those days you only invited the junior and senior classes, so it was very exclusive. We took the Metro North down to the city and got to spend an evening meeting some alums and learning about some networking and really learning about the power of this Yale connection. So as more than a decade later, really glad to be here as an alumna and get to meet the current team today. Thinking back on my time at Yale, a few things come to mind. First and foremost is definitely the joy and grind of playing field hockey. Taylor kind of alluded to this, but I am what we call in the business a hockey head, and I always have been. I'm obsessed with field hockey. During my playing days, I loved escaping the daily grind of class and schoolwork and getting out to Johnson Field for practice. It was my daily highlight. It was my escape every single day. I remember the winter days of waking up early and trudging through literal snowstorms to get to Payne Whitney Gym, where we'd run 200-yard shuttles until we puked, or timed 4-mile runs on the indoor track. Thank you, Pam. That is insane, by the way. That is 32 laps. And we were timing it on our chrono watches, the whole thing. So funny to think back on. But yeah, so many of my core memories involve those sorts of struggles and grinds with my teammates. I can still picture like Taylor and Aaron's faces on that track. Like those are such like scarred in my brain memories. But it's those sorts of memories and those struggles and us working really hard that made our 2011 Ivy League championship that much sweeter. That year was a really special season. It was one that involved a lot of big wins, but there's one in particular that I love to remind my current boss, Tracy Fuchs, of. The Yale Bulldogs went out to Chicago that fall and we played Northwestern on their home turf. They were ranked number 15th in the country at the time, and we gave them a good beat down. We beat them, I think it was like 3-2 or something, but. So yeah, I love to remind my boss of that. She does not so much. even though it's like 13 years later. Let's see, I've lost my spot here. After that game, and really throughout that season, we were receiving votes in the coaches poll, and if not for one pretty brutal loss to Princeton, we would have made the NCAA tournament that year. And I have to say, watching this year's 2023 Yale team was really, really exciting because it got me thinking we're getting back on track to those sorts of seasons and wins. I obviously am on the road a lot in the fall, traveling with Northwestern, but I always find a way to get the Yale games up on my phone. I have really converted our Northwestern coaching staff into a bunch of Yale fans. And like always in the airport, on the team bus, we are watching Yale games. And I was a complete nutcase watching the final against Princeton, I have to say. Like screaming my head off every time Poppy ripped a shot up front. Or Emma Ramsey ran down the left side of the field. Like I was going nuts. You could ask Tracy and Will. But it was just so fun to watch that game and that style of play. And obviously it was a very brutal ending and not what we wanted, but it's those sorts of games and those feelings, hopefully, that will push you guys over the edge next year. And I cannot wait to see the Bulldogs in the new Ivy League tournament, competing for a spot in NCAAs. So the second thing I think about when I think back on my time at Yale is starting to navigate what I wanted to do with my life. I'm clearly not your typical Yale graduate. I didn't go to medical school or law school or even Wall Street. And obviously those paths are very admirable, but I'm basically here to say there's not one right way to do it. You can make a career out of so many different things, and I do think it is hard here at Yale to remember that sometimes. I was a kid who showed up to Yale having always liked math and sciences, and basically because of that, and the people I was surrounded by in those classes, I deemed myself a pre-med student. I did summer orgo in New Haven, I was working in labs, and I was basically just trying to keep up with my pre-med classmates. I actually had a biochemistry exam the morning after we won the Ivy League championship, so I didn't even get to like go out and celebrate that much for my team. I was like the pre-med stereotype. So when I wrapped up my senior fall of hockey, I knew because of an injury my junior year, I had a year of eligibility left, and I was not ready to be done with college field hockey. And you'll see this becomes a theme for me, obviously. I was lucky at the time to be recruited by Wake Forest and got to go down and take basically a grad year of eligibility to play for the Demon Deacons. I basically did the COVID grad transfer thing before it was even really a thing. And I didn't realize this at the time, but tearing my ACL my junior year was a very hidden twist of fate that would eventually open a lot of new doors for me. I went down to Wake. I played one more fall of field hockey, and it was amazing. We won the ACC championship that year. I met lifelong friends and mentors. But this time when it was over, I really was faced with okay, what do I do post-college hockey now? I was getting a master's of exercise science because I thought that would help bolster my medical school application. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I was starting to doubt whether I actually really wanted to go to medical school. Clear hint into that was that I had not studied or taken an MCAT. I was pushing that off as long as possible. And meanwhile, I was starting to discover a new passion that maybe could lead to a new career. In my second year of this master's program at Wake, Jen Averill, the head coach at Wake Forest, still the head coach, gave me an opportunity to serve as their graduate assistant, volunteer assistant, whatever you want to call it. And I really, really liked it. But it was this like new opportunity that was bringing me to what felt like a crossroads at the time. I just could not shake this feeling that if I skipped medical school and went the coaching route, that I was wasting my Yale degree. And that was a terrible feeling. I kept thinking, like, what were those 4 years for? Why did I work so hard at Yale? Why did I skip celebrating with my teammates when I, stayed in and studied? And I think I was hearing a little bit of that same sentiment from some family members and even some Yale friends. So that was like a very serious heaviness and kind of mental block for me during those times. So I now refer to that stage of my life as my existential crisis. I met with Jen Averill, the Wake head coach, basically on a weekly basis that year, and had many tear-filled conversations about what exactly I just wanted to get out of my life and my career. And it was hard for me to eventually accept the fact that I wanted to forego medical school and give college coaching a try. I reasoned myself into it by believing that if I went to medical school and I didn't like it for some reason, I wasn't going to quit med school. I was going to be in it, and I was going to see it through and be a doctor. I'm not paying that much money to go to med school to drop out. But if I chose the other route and went the college coaching way, and for some reason it didn't work out or I didn't like it, I could always go back to medical school, and my pre-med credits from Yale weren't going anywhere. So with that thought, I took the jump and I tried my hand in college coaching, and clearly it stuck. I was really lucky actually to use my Yale network to lock up my first full-time assistant job at Michigan State, as Tamara Durante, who was my assistant coach here at Yale, had moved on at that point, was at Michigan State, and really opened that door for me. So eternally grateful to Tamara, that is for sure. I'm now lucky to be part of a program at Northwestern where I get to work with amazing student athletes every day and strive to push our program to new heights. I'm still a crazy competitor, and I love that I work in an environment where winning and losing is part of my everyday. And I'm incredibly proud of the championships we've won. We won the 2021 National Championship, which was the first of its kind for Northwestern field hockey. So in terms of accomplishments, that's what I'm really proud of. But as much as the competition drives me and is obviously really fun, it's the other parts of coaching that have kept me in it. I love the connections I get to build with student athletes, and I honestly love talking to them about their classwork or their IM basketball game or the funny thing that happened at lunch more than I love talking to them about field hockey. We do a ton of that, but the real stuff is really more fun. I love hearing from young alums about their new jobs and how much they're crushing it. And honestly, my favorite thing is helping athletes through the tough stuff. Guiding players through conflicts with teammates, or they're failing a class, even things like grief. I feel like if I have a small hand in helping a student athlete overcome a challenge, I'm satisfied. That is the most rewarding feeling in my job. So my husband Mike, who's here today, recently introduced me to this phrase, write your plans in pencil, not pen. And I think that just sums it up. It really couldn't summarize my career path more, and it's an important reminder that life will throw you a ton of curveballs, and you have to be willing to cross things out or use that eraser on the back of your pencil. My teammate and classmate here at Yale, Erica Borgo, used to always talk about her 5-year plan. If you know Borgo, yeah, it makes sense. So when we were in college, she would make me and my 6 classmates on the team come up with what our 5-year plans were. And it basically was what is your life after Yale gonna look like? It was fun. It was kind of like a goofy dream exercise that we play on road trips or something. But I can tell you, being 10 years out, not a single one of us followed a plan remotely close to what we drew up as 20-year-olds. I was planning to be a doctor. Now I'm a coach. I was planning to live on the East Coast, and I've been living in the Midwest for 8 years now. And I was planning to marry someone smart and successful, and I married a Harvard guy. But thank goodness everything wound up the way it did. Mike actually wrote that joke for me, so I know he's not offended. Gotta take the stabs where you can. But to wrap up, I do think it's really, really important to acknowledge how special this alumni group is. The fact that they put on this fete every year, that they host fundraising events for us and have alumni weekends in the fall, it's really, really special, and it's not the norm. I've been involved with a number of Division I programs at this point, and nothing compares to what we have in this room. So I want to thank everyone, especially those who serve on the board, but really all active alumni who pour time and energy into this group. Thank you for making this network of women so unique and so powerful. It makes me really proud to be a Yale field hockey alum, and it inspires me to continue to give back. So thank you for having me. That is all from me, and I'm looking forward to it. Who planned a question? An open book? Yeah, either one of you.
Oh no, I was gonna make a joke question of who was your favorite freshman in your senior year?
Definitely not me. Actually. That's a good one. What do you got?
I was just gonna ask about your MBA and that part, like why you decided to pursue that.
So, what is your name? Sorry.
Oh, I'm Lane.
Lane?
Class of 22, 23.
Class of 22. For the camera, she asked about my MBA and like why I decided to do that. So really, it's interesting. It kind of ties back into the story I just told, where like. My plans are gonna get crossed out or erased, but in COVID, obviously as a college coach, that year, that spring of 2020 into the fall, we didn't have that much to do. Our team wasn't really around, and we were trying to come up with like important tasks and recruiting stuff and whatever, but I had a lot of downtime to think about like where I was at in life, and I honestly felt not bored, but like I needed some intellectual stimulation in my life. So I thought maybe I should go back to school. I knew that Northwestern had this program at Kellogg where you could do an MBA part-time. So really just kind of like my eternal curiosity. I knew nothing about business school, and with the state of college athletics and really what a business college athletics is in and of itself, I thought, hey, maybe this would be useful to me in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, I've really, really enjoyed it. I'll be done this spring, but the biggest thing I've gained out of it is honestly just a new network of friends and people, which has been a huge positive. I've learned some business stuff, but it's not that important. I'm in like finance 2 right now, and I'm like, I have no idea.
How do you think field hockey has changed from playing here at Yale and now coaching?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is always interesting, like look back on the style changes. Oh,
would you do
time
that?
out. Question.
Repeating
the question. How do you?
Fenne.
Fenne?
Yeah.
Are you from Holland?
Yeah, I am.
My last name. She asked how I think field hockey has changed since I played at Yale to today. I think it's funny, when I was in high school, the self-start rule was implemented, so I remember that being like the biggest change in terms of stylistic play of hockey. But then I try to think about like the rules that are different these days and how much the aerial game is involved now. Like, I couldn't throw an aerial when I played at Yale, and I still almost can't. But like, there's so many, I think it's still faster, like so much has changed stylistically, but we like to say in the Big Ten, we're Big Ten big girls. Tess might have heard of that before. So we like to say we're like the physical, like rough conference that likes to beat up on the ACC who thinks they're like finessey. Maybe that's sharing too much, but I think like I played that way too. I was always kind of a physical, like wanted to bump people off the ball. So I think I have tried to take that to Northwestern with me. I think our defense plays a pretty physical style, but I don't know, I'm not really answering your question very well. It's faster, there's more aerials. I think like formations have probably changed a bit too. Like, I don't remember, Pam, what we played honestly, probably still a 3-4-3, but at Northwestern at least we flow in and out of like a 3 or 4 back look, so maybe like a bit more fluid as well. Talk hockey all day. What else? Yeah.
Now, what is it? How many years into coaching? What do you think about what you thought? You know, you said your biggest holdup was like, I don't want to waste my Yale degree. I have a feeling you don't feel it's wasted now. So I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So Tess asked how I feel about being a coach now, however many years I've been in coaching, and how have I gotten over the idea of wasting my Yale degree. I know I'm definitely not wasting my Yale degree, and I always knew that, right? Like, I think there's so much you learn and get out of coming to Yale that don't necessarily apply to your careers or your jobs. Like I said, I think back on, like, I think Yale was the place where I learned how to learn. I said that before, but like, I think I am like eons above most of my business school classmates because I just have this foundation from Yale where, like, if I have an exam in a week or I have some readings due, I know how to get through it and do it in like the smartest way possible and still come out like with a ton of comprehension. So I think that applies to anything you do in life. So coaching, scouting, whatever. But I also think like having the Yale name associated with me has helped me in my coaching career as well. I think as a 24-year-old, I was hired as a full-time assistant in the Big Ten, and that's pretty rare. I know Tamara obviously helped me with that, but, and then yeah, I got to move on to a place like Northwestern pretty quickly. So I know I earned that myself with my hard work and my background in hockey, but I do think there's always a little bit of an extra push given because of the Yale name. Yeah.
So one of our future roundtable topics is what we carry. What do you carry from your time here as a Yale player into your professional and personal life?
So Jan asked what I carry from Yale into my professional life. I think Yale was the first place where I was finally thrown into like an extremely diverse environment. I really appreciated that about Yale. I had a roommate from France. I had a ton of friends from the international like community. And I think recognizing the power and importance of diversity and diverse teams is something that I definitely take with me in my work now. So much though, like I don't know, I carry so much from Yale. Like I said, the way I think and the way I learn, but I would really say like the type of people I try to surround myself with is like the types of people I found and learned from at Yale. Oh, now we got a lot of hands. Yeah, go ahead. Colette.
If you were talking to your 20-year-old self, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give her?
Yeah. So what advice would I give my 20-year-old self now? I would say have more fun, like choose to do the fun thing over the like serious thing more often than not. Go to Toads when you don't think you should go to Toads. Sorry guys. This is a very funny dynamic because I have like a work relationship relationship with Carrie and Gonzo, but also like a friend relationship, and like I know everything that you guys are doing at Yale and the life of it, but I'm a coach, so yeah, choose the fun thing more often and like worry less. Like things will work themselves out, even if you feel like you have no idea or things just aren't lining up. Like you will figure it out, and maybe also like take advantage of the Yale network as much as possible. I was probably like a shyer student at this point in my career. I'm still not super comfortable being up here talking, but like just use the women that are involved in this network, and even if you're just interested in something you saw on their LinkedIn bio or whatever, like if any one of you reached out to me, I would be pumped about it, and I'm sure that's how most women in this room feel. There were a couple others. Taylor, yeah.
So you jumped right into a leadership position like pretty quickly after leaving school. How did you build the confidence to lead a team when, you know, in more traditional career paths, you have moments where you're sort of in years of training, like whether you're an investment banker or a doctor, you're in training mode for a long time. You did something different. How did you deal with that?
Yeah. So Taylor asked how I dealt with jumping straight into some sort of leadership position right out of school. It wasn't easy. I was like 24 trying to coach 21, 22-year-olds, and there's like no built-in authority there, right? Like a head coach, sure, there usually is, but somebody along my path, I don't even remember who, basically told me that like being a leader, maybe it was Pam when I was captain, like you don't change who you are or like what you've done. You like just be yourself and be authentic and genuine, and people will respect that. So I tried to just like show who I was. I was like super competitive. In those days I could still play, so I would like play with the team sometimes. I cannot do that anymore. So I think like truly trying to tap into like like who I was, what were my core values, and just trying to live that every day eventually. And then it does help to like get older and like get that separation of age from you, the coach, to the player. But yeah, I had some tough like situations early in my coaching career where, you know, I was like, one of my players at Michigan State basically like said, "Why should I listen to you? You're like 1 year older than me." And I was like, good point. So it takes a little bit of time. It's obviously always the kind of trial and error, but yeah, genuinely like being authentic would be like my advice there, or how I tried to do it. Yes.
Hi, I'm Taz. So how do you think your ACL injury sort of affected your junior year? Yeah. And like whether it shaped sort of the person you've become today or not?
Yeah. Does anyone here have a like bad injury going on right now? Hopefully not. Good. Yeah, I was, it was pretty devastating for me at the time. Oh, sorry. Tabs asked how my ACL injury basically like gave me perspective in some way. So yeah, I'm a hockey head, and not having like hockey to play for 6 to 7, 8 months was really tough. I actually was supposed to leave the day after I tore my ACL to go to the Junior Pan Am games and play on the USU 21 team. So I was like really bad timing, really devastated, like definitely bawled in Pam's office for a couple days there. But I think that season was really eye-opening for me. I had to like learn how to add value without being on the field, and I hadn't ever done that in my life before, and I don't think I was like great at it, honestly. That was a learning experience. I was like frustrated and annoyed most of that fall, but I think by the end of it I realized that like there's certain things in life you just can't control. You gotta roll with the punches, and I worked pretty hard on still trying to be a leader that fall, because it meant a lot to me to be considered a leader in my senior year and eventually get voted captain. So I like did not want to lose out on that because I wasn't on the field. So yeah, I think it's always good perspective to get like knocked out of your comfort zone. But yeah, it forced me to like figure out how to use my voice a little bit more and not just play really hard or knock someone over, and be a supportive teammate when things did not go well that fall either. Like we didn't have a great record. So figuring out like how to get through tough times when you don't feel like you can actually make an impact. I think that was really important. Yeah. There were a couple other ones. Anybody else? Yeah.
I also figured out I did not want to go to med school while actually taking the MCAT.
There you go. I didn't get that far.
Understanding that you don't want to do something is a lot different than doing or making that switch.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who has figured out that what they're currently pursuing isn't the right path? And like, what are those next steps into kind of figuring it out?
Right. So Jackie asked, what advice would you give to someone who has figured out what they don't want to do but hasn't quite figured out the rest? It's a really good question, actually. I was lucky because I kind of figured out what I didn't want to do because of something else. But this kind of goes back to like the don't panic, don't worry, like things will work themselves out thing. I think I had a lot of friends and teammates and classmates at Yale who went one direction and then were like, skirt, like I do not want to do that anymore. And I think usually there's some like inner feeling or gut feeling driving that initial like stop that hopefully is pointing you in like some direction. And then using that to say, okay, like this is like a classic coaching thing, but like what's your why, right? Like what do you actually enjoy doing and why do you want to do that? And that's why I stayed in sport. Like sport was just that for me. Like I don't know what I would do honestly with my life if I wasn't involved in sport in some way, shape, or form. So like doing a core values exercise or something where you're like, what do I really, really care about and how can I swing that into something that is meaningful to me in terms of a career? Yes, Carol.
If I channeled my inner Borgo and said,
Please do.
I wish you would. Made me smile when I thought about
she's
do you think much? How far out do you look now about your career and really your life? How far out do you kind of plan on where you think you're going?
Yeah.
Do you stay in the present and stay focused on that? And can you talk a little bit about how you're approaching that at this point in your life and career?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Carol asked, thinking back on Borgo's 5-year plan, at this point in my life, how far out do I plan or look into the future? I don't look very far. Like I probably look a year ahead. As like field hockey coaches, it's very cyclical, I think, so you can like measure your years based on a fall season and an off season and a summer of recruiting, whatever. So I try to stay like within whatever cycle I'm in. And I think that does help me execute my like daily job better than thinking, okay, well in 5 years I want to be a head coach and then at this type of school and then I want to be at this type of school after that or whatever it might be. And honestly, I'm busy enough with like school and work and everything that I can't honestly think that much further ahead. Yeah, I'm taking 3 classes right now, so I'm like a full-time student. It's not pretty. So yeah, I think there's always value in like reaching and dreaming about maybe that 5-year plan and thinking about how you might build steps to get there, but I definitely live more in the like month out, 2 months out type of range. And I don't know, that just works for me. Anybody else? No. Hear a pin drop in here. It seems like that's it. Thank you guys so much.